And Sven, I learned you made new friends, you and Shane, this morning.
Yes, I did. Well, not really. I think Karen and I have been knowing about each other for some time. So, but she gave very constructive input, which I thoroughly appreciate. She has promised to follow all the talks.
Okay, well,
yes,
the
I'm
feedback
back again
that I have,
here for this one.
There you are.
Just joined.
I haven't introduced myself properly. I'm Paul.
Hi, Paul. Karen here.
I missed part of the earlier presentations. I'm really sorry about that. So, have you seen anything new? Heard anything new, Karen?
You mean from the discussions this morning?
Right.
Oh yeah. As I said, this is a great opportunity for me to well, to try to engage with the industry and understand what the concerns are and understand what the problems are. And as I explained earlier, I think that the best way of addressing any concerns is to be completely involved in the process. That's the only way to actually influence the process, is to be involved in it. And I mean, we are committed to engaging with all of the stakeholders to make sure that this is an inclusive process. Yeah, and to try to dispel some of the fear around, you know, this workshop that is planned. Yeah, so it's, you know, it's a good opportunity for me to reach out to the industry, but also for me to learn from the industry as well. There has to be a two-way communication, you know. So I as I said, I have committed to following all of the talks, and I will.
Okay, great having you. Well, the thing is, there is obvious a great concern among the industry, of course, especially as we don't know what is going to happen, and the uncertainty makes things, well, fuels up things even more than they already are. I think the vast majority of people in this industry, if something needs to be done conservation-wise, I think vast majority, if explained well, they will follow. I mean, we've seen with invasive alien species issues that people are willing to follow guidance on things. But if they don't have any say in it or any influence, it's a stress factor. Well, that's how I learned it in the past. Behavioral science, if you don't have any influence in the process, stress is a major concern at that point.
I totally agree, but I also agree that, or I'm also of the view that the process and the outcome of the process will only be as good as the information that goes into it. And so the more comprehensive that information is, and I think we're all coming from this aim of having this be science-based. So I think, you know, we're kind of on the same, we have the same objective. And you'll see this in other species that have been considered for CITES listings. If they're being managed well outside of CITES, it's not necessary. And in many cases, so for example, the CITES can sometimes be used as an incentive for parties to, or even other bodies like ICAT in the bluefin tuna. ICAT was supposed to be managing this. So by the possibility of a listing, it kind of it brought ICAT into action. And the same with Banggai cardinalfish. Then Indonesia stepped up and did their management. So, and as I was explaining earlier, the fact that there's a workshop does not mean that there will be any recommendations coming out of this saying that particular species should be listed. And it's always up, even if the workshop recommended something like that, it has to be a party that brings it. There's it won't be an outcome of the workshop to put forward a listing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think part of the fear is that some people who have an interest in this have clearly expressed that they are looking for listing proposals. But that aside, I'm very satisfied with yeah, I'm very satisfied with you now speaking openly on this, because the biggest problem now has been that thanks to COVID, we haven't had a clue of what was going on. So we definitely want to be involved as much as we can be. But I think we are spending Minnie's time now. As
yes,
she
ahead,
starts.
yeah. We can all talk later.
Yeah.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, greetings from Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. My name is Paul Bakuwel, Secretary General of OFI. Before I start my presentation, Market Trends for Ornamental Fishes in Europe, I would like to thank the School of Industrial Fisheries, Cochin University of Science and Technology for organizing this program, a great initiative which we of OFI fully support. I have joined OFI in September 2016, after working 16 years for a wholesale company in ornamental fish in the Netherlands. Before joining OFI, I read the articles in the OFI journal, but I had never much interest in the subject of legislation. Like I think many of you, I would only get my full attention from the moment it would seriously affect my daily work. We need your support for a proper representation of the international ornamental or aquatic industry at various international fora. I hope with this presentation and the ones of my colleagues to share our concerns and the need to expand our activities, the need for your support. Whether you're active in the dry goods sector, aquatic plants or fish. This presentation will obviously not be on the latest hype of new species or varieties in the trade. The EU market. The single market refers to the EU as one territory without any internal borders or other regulatory obstacles to the free movement of goods and services. The European Union single market accounts for 500 million consumers and 21 million small and medium-sized enterprises. Currently, 28 countries are a member. The Commission's main goal is to ensure the free movement of goods within the market and to set high safety standards for consumers and the protection of the environment. According to UN Comtrade, the International Trade Statistic Database, the EU 28 imported in 2018 $84 million of live ornamental fish. Compare this figure to the other large importers, the USA, followed by China, Japan, and Singapore. Now, the overview does certainly not reflect the size of each market, as the data does not take into account local production. Obviously, the USA has, compared to the EU, a much larger domestic production. When looking at trade data, we should keep in mind that import and export data are not reported in the same way. While export is reported as FOB, import is cost and freight. In this presentation, we only look at import data. In addition, we need to take into account the currency conversion factor, especially when comparing data over time. According to UN Comtrade, the EU 28 imports of ornamental fish have been relatively static. Harmonized system codes make it possible to differentiate between freshwater and marine water fish import data. Over 80% has been imported under the freshwater ornamental HS code 030111, while marine fish are registered under 030119. Now, who are the biggest players of the 28 member states? The United Kingdom is by far the largest importer, followed by Germany and the Netherlands. This is only a partial indication of the market size of each member state. In the case of the Netherlands, considerable part of imports are distributed in other EU member states. The top 10 represent 90% of the EU 28 imports. The Czech Republic has always been an important supplier of ornamental fish in Europe, supplier and producer. Before the country joined in the EU in 2004, Germany was importing more fish than the UK. Obviously, since the Czech Republic joined the EU, Germany trade data with Czech Republic are no longer represented in this table. Now, what are the possible key factors that will influence the trade for the EU? We will briefly go over the following topics in this presentation. The new animal health legislation, 2021, invasive alien species listings, and COVID-19 and air freight. The first topic, new animal health legislation. There have been a number of health certificates over the past years. In 1994, the ornamental fish industry in most European countries was surprised by the introduction of a health certificate and border inspection. We have seen several legislations. In 2006, the Council Directive on Animal Health Requirements for Aquaculture Animals and Products, and on the prevention and control of certain diseases in aquatic animals came into place, the Directive 2006. A directive is a legal act of the European Union which requires member states to achieve a particular result. The Aquaculture Directive foresaw a new health certificates in a European model in Regulation 1251. With Regulation 346, an adopted model was introduced, followed yet by another one in 2012. These 2008, 2010, 2012 certifications were all based on the Aquaculture Directive. Some of you might remember the confusion this all has led to and still does from time to time. This is especially true for exporting countries with competent authorities with limited capacity. Council Directive 2006 on animal health requirements for aquaculture animals and products and the prevention and control of certain diseases in aquatic animals. What is this directive? Well, it is 43 pages long and it states, among others, point 7, point 28, point 30, point 38, etc., point 39. But what is most important is point 38, ornamental aquatic animals, not in direct contact with community waters, consequently do not pose the same risk. And this is crucial for our industry. It means that health certifications mostly cross out practically all the diseases that are listed on the certificate. Imagine if that would not have been the case, if all ornamental fish would have been certified for all the diseases listed in the OIE, then ornamental fish imports would have been practically impossible, at least for a large number of species. Shall not apply where ornamental aquatic animals are kept in pet shops, garden centers, garden ponds, commercial aquariums, or with wholesalers, without, again, direct contact with natural waters in the community. I believe we owe a lot of the current position of the ornamental aquatic industry to Alex Ploeg, the OFI Secretary General that was among the victims of the MH17 plane crash. Now, in the years after Aquaculture Council Directive 2006, as we've said, we've seen 3 health certificates that apply for our industry. From April 2021, a new health law will apply. So far, the European Commission has stated that not much will change for the ornamental aquatic trade. But losing the label "do not pose the same risk" could have serious consequences for our industry. You might think, as an importer operating in other parts of the world than the EU, this might not affect you. In fact, any shipment of live ornamental fish with a stopover within the EU needs certification. In the past, I have seen many shipments being stuck in the Netherlands on the way from South America to Asia due to incorrect or incomplete health certifications. The second topic is invasive alien species. The EU has an invasive alien species list. Prevent the import of potentially invasive alien species, plants and animals from becoming established in their territory and causing problems. It comes under the EU Regulation 1143, the Union List. According to the European Commission, 12,000 alien species are present in the European environment. 10 to 15% of alien species arriving in Europe eventually become invasive. And the cost to the European economy is estimated to be at least 12 billion euros per year in areas such as healthcare and animal health costs, crop yield losses, and fish stock losses. The list started with 7 plants, terrestrial plants, aquatic plants, mammals 9, birds, reptiles and amphibians, invertebrates, freshwater invertebrates and fish, a total of 37 species. Especially those companies in the ornamental aquatic industry active in producing and exporting plants to the EU have been hit hard. Kabomba, excellent in decorations in aquariums and ponds, has been included in the Union List. Wim Tomei, in his article in the OFI Journal 78, stated, "I understood that some of the international legislators within the negotiating committee were suggesting that all species of Kabomba should be included under the suggested European regulation, regardless of the fact that thousands of people in developing countries find employment in this kind of production and trade. The suggestion of prohibiting all species of Kabomba seems to have been made only with the intention of facilitating control by state officials and authorities who, most likely, lack the knowledge to recognize appearance of the different species. One could argue if this ban should be applicable for the whole EU. Climatic conditions in the northern part of Europe don't allow certain species to survive. However, Kabomba has been included as water hyacinth has. The list is not a static, and the invasive alien species regulations will be updated. Latest updates, 34 species will be considered for listing in 2021. Freshwater species, bambichok, African clawed frog, Ghana argus and the water lettuce. And marine species, silver-checked toadfish, common lionfish and Asian green musselfish. Well, let's look at the common lionfish. This fish is migrating through the Suez Canal from the Red Sea to the Mediterranean. And somehow, I think trade in this case, it can't be blamed as being the vehicle or the vector of transmitting, migrating, or helping to migrate this fish from one part of the world to the other. We have been cooperating with other trade associations, and in particularly I want to name OATA from the UK, who has been extremely helpful and knowledgeable on the risk assessments of species being on the list. Several responses, with the help of OATA, have been forwarded to the EU. There is, however, also the trade. We have to think and look at our own activities. We ship probably the largest numbers of animals around the world and plants compared to any other industry, and we have an obligation to inform our clients, wholesalers, retailers, hobbyists, not to release whatever they buy in a shop. I think we should put much more emphasis on educating people on this matter. The third topic I want to highlight is COVID-19. Early April, I was repatriated from Sudan to the Netherlands as a precautionary measure and arrived at an almost deserted airport. Now, this was a bewildering experience as Amsterdam Airport yearly transferred almost 72 million passengers. I think many of us, among us, have witnessed the impact of the pandemic at some stage. Empty streets, shops closed, even complete lockdowns. John Dawes, in his article Far East Aquatic Livestock Exporters Hit Hard by COVID-19 Pandemic, reported a collapse of sales by anything between 50 and 90%. John Dawes, among others, editor of the OFI Journal, and also presenting at this event. Early September, just a few months later, after John's article, we made a short inquiry among a number of our members in the EU. Among others, Belgium, France, Netherlands, UK, and also asked questions in Singapore and Israel what the status was of the trade. Sales were higher than ever. Everybody was very enthusiastic and reported that they were making up for the losses they have bared earlier during the year. And air freight remains challenging. You can imagine, with very low number of people, passenger flights at this moment, it is a challenge to find space on airplanes and, in fact, reach the destinations you as an importer are located. Price has drastically increased over the past months. One of our members reported in September 2020 a price increase of $1.40 per kilo from Thailand, $3 from Singapore, $2.20 from Indonesia, $4.20 from Vietnam, $2.10 from Sri Lanka. Now, prices have been even higher during the previous months. But imagine yourself a small or a relatively small importer in Europe doing 100 boxes per week, 14 kilos per box, at an additional $3 per kilo. This adds up towards the end of the year of over $200,000 per year. This will have consequences, and unless prices will go down again, we will definitely see a change in behavior of imports, and specifically I think of smaller sized fish being targeted for the market in order to reduce the landed cost again. On the other hand, it also opens up a window of opportunity for local production. Although this might not be huge in the beginning, it will create a window. I would like to thank you for your attention. And one more thing. I would like to end where I started. We need your support for a proper representation of the international ornamental aquatic trade at various international fora. I hope with this presentation and the ones of my colleagues to share our concern and the need to expand our activities, the need for your support. Whether you're active in the dry goods sector, the ornamental aquatic plants and fish, or any other activity benefiting from this beautiful industry that provides livelihood for so many. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you. Thank you very much, Paul.
You're welcome.
Let's see. Are there any comments? Anybody wants to have a talk? John? Unmute, unmute. Can somebody talk? Yes.
Hi, Minnie. May I speak?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
It's to ask Paul, because I found, when I was doing the research for that article, that, exports had collapsed, had really dropped dramatically. But as we know, since then, and as Paul reported, sales have gone up, with online sales, I think, being prominent among them. Now, those fish still have to be shipped. Now, presumably, the sales have gone up, and this is the question, Paul, the sales have gone up irrespective of the higher freight costs, the horrendous higher freight costs that have been implemented. Am I right?
Thank you for your question, John. Good to see you. I'm doing my round at a number of importers and exporters. Some of them could not differentiate if the higher turnover they were making was also reflecting more fish at the time. Some importers told me that the number of fish did increase in their opinion. And of course, with a higher freight cost, the total amount of money involved went up. But not everybody could confirm that it is always more fish. Some did, some couldn't confirm that. Does that answer your question?
Well, up to a point, but because we keep saying that online sales, have gone up, and the value presumably is in the number of fish then, irrespective of the effects of freight costs. It's just that there's greater demand because people are more at home.
There is definitely a number of importers did responded with yes, there is greater demand. The number of fish leaving their facilities did increase. I remember when I worked for a wholesale company in the Netherlands, we were especially doing well in those years when the economy was down, actually, when people didn't have the opportunity to go on holidays or to buy a new car or buy a new kitchen, but had to stay at home. While staying at home, they invest in their direct surrounding, which might include a fish tank. Yes, I think with the COVID-19, as being a lot of people being at home more often than they used to be, they will invest more in their aquarium and their hobby. In our case, the fish hobby.
Thanks.
Paul, may I have a question to you?
Yes, please.
Paul, now as there has been a horrendous increase in the air freight, we also have seen it in Sri Lanka, and we have to use cargo planes, which do not have heated compartments, neither a definite schedule. It might take much longer, even double the time that we expect the flight to go. So even that way, we are taking that risk too. So getting back to this increase in prices, who do you think is absorbing this? Is it the exporter, the importer, or the hobbyist? Who do you think is absorbing that increase in price?
Well, in the end, the consumer will have to pay a higher price. Indeed, the industry has always, or the majority of the industry has always targeted passenger planes as their way to fly their products from one side to the world to the other side of the world, as they are much more reliable regarding time. You can leave a few boxes here with phones or whatever on an airport standing, but you can't leave 100 passengers waiting for a day. Indeed, passengers planes have always been the target for our industry. I understand that I've seen importers in Europe saying they do a surcharge on their selling price on their fish. Some other importers have increased their fish price over the whole basket they have. So they have a bit of a different strategy, but in the end, the consumer is the one who's paying for this. Now, you can imagine if it is a box with 1,000 platies or 800 guppies, the price increase will not be that huge. But if it comes, for instance, with the marine sector, where you have much more exclusive species with small numbers of fish in a box, there you will see a drastic increase in price in the shops. Good to see you, Kapila.
Good to see you, Paul, too. Thank you, Paul. Got the idea.
You're welcome.
Karen is not asking straight. I think Karen.
Yes, yeah, I can take the microphone and ask my question if it's easier. I'm just wondering if you have noticed a preference among importers and hobbyists as well for wild-caught specimens or captive-bred specimens. I know with some species, there's a preference on a higher value on the wild ones, but obviously there are benefits to the captive bred as well, because you can ensure that they're disease-free and different things. So I'm just wondering, in your industry, is there a preference, or is it just depend on the supply?
Thank you for your question, Karen. We see that the ornamental fish trade, there's a division, a rough division, I would say, between freshwater and marine fish. While freshwater fish, I think the vast majority, up to 90%, is captive bred fish, and just a small fraction still wild caught fish. Is there in that part of the industry a preference for wild caught? Well, there are people that want to have a specific fish among the discus from Brazil, from a certain river system. And there are others that don't care that much and like the colorful captive bred species. Freshwater, vast majority is captive bred. When you go to the marine, it's the other way around. Up till now, the majority of fish comes from the wild. But make no mistake, the marine sector is catching up really fast regarding the numbers of captive bred species. I think the marine sector is trailing behind compared to the freshwater sector, maybe 20 to 30 years. As technology has improved, and this technology might very well comes from aquaculture for consumption fish. We have seen a huge development in the sea bream industry, sea bass industry, the shrimp industry, all marine species which the spin of it is technology which is also used in larval rearing for captive bred marine fish. I think if we're 20 years down the line from now, we will see that there's many, many more species of marine fish being captive bred. Now, the preference of the hobbyist that is something sometimes is depending a bit on what is the latest trend, or what is the latest how to say what is in style, in fashion at a certain point. I think we will see more and more marine fish species being bred in the near future.
Okay, thank you. I find that really interesting. I kind of find it fascinating, and the whole issue of captive breeding and the question of whether by having captive breeding of a species, you actually remove the incentive from the local communities for, you know, sustainably catching that wild population, and you can almost disincentivize it by mass producing and captive breeding. But in some cases, it can be very helpful if there's a huge demand for something. It can take the pressure off. So it's a philosophical, but it's an interesting question. So that's why I'm trying to get into the mindset of what is in demand. Yeah, what is preferred. Yeah, thank you.
In the past, Manaus was a big exporter of freshwater fish. Cardinals were one of the items which was exported in high numbers, and now these days a large part of the cardinals, they come from captive breeding, whether in Indonesia or in Vietnam. That is shifting away from wild caught. I'm wondering though, people living in Manaus, in the vicinity of Manaus, their livelihood is jeopardized, and what are these people going to do to take care of themselves, to feed their children? Will they be forced to go into gold mining? Will they be forced to go into logging? Things that are much more detrimental, in my opinion, than catching cardinals from the wild.
Paul,
yes.
To back up what you just said, many years ago, I was on the Rio Negro and I was staying with some caboclos, and we went out there collecting. And they practiced sustainability to the extreme, in the sense that if they harpooned anything for food, they wouldn't harpoon anything else because that's all they needed. But I was having this conversation with a guy called Sarah, and I said, because you're saying, wow, times are tough, you know. I said, yeah, but what would happen if your fishery disappeared? He said, oh, we'd have to either emigrate or we'd have to look at other forms of sustainability. I said, well, what do you mean by that? And he said, well, we'd have to plant crops, we'd have to cut the forest down and so on. He said, so as long as the fish are there and as long as demand is there, he said, we're okay. If it isn't there, then there are problems. And this, I think, is part of the argument that is lost by some people that who are so overboard on the captive breeding ticket that they tend to forget that there are very real people out there who earn an honest living from collecting a certain amount of fish, and that the problems arising from that disappearing are horrendous for the environment. So these same people who condemn the collecting of wild fish, and there are fewer and fewer, of course, they need to bear this in mind, because it's a balancing act that I think needs to be performed. And on the question of cardinals, I mean, I've got cardinals in my tank back here, and some of them are over 3.5 years old, which is unheard of in the wild. They weren't wild caught. They came from the Czech Republic. You know, and it says, where's the balance? You know, where we keep the balance? Because I couldn't go to the shop and say, I want some cardinals, but they must be wild caught and come out of Manaus. He said, no, we receive them once a week. Where do you receive them from? The Czech Republic. Yeah, it's this balancing act that I think that's worth bearing in mind.
Yes. Thank you for your input, John.
Who is under the names Marines? Marines has some opinion about Rio de Negro and the ornamental fish from Manaus. Is it Mary? Is that Mary?
Yeah, it is me. How are you? I promised to you to be in the meeting if I can have my opinion too.
I was wondering whether it's Scott or Mary.
Yes.
Come on, you can ask yourself.
Yeah. Could I have this moment just explaining
Yes.
about? Yeah. Okay. So nice to meet you guys. I'm from Brazil. I'm living south of Brazil and part of Project Piaba for more than 12 years or 12 years ago. And I am, okay, I'm giving my video. Nice to meet you guys. Yes, okay. And I wrote the indication of procedence from Rio Negro. So the papers and the document dossier, it made by me and also together the team. And I don't know if you know the indication of origin of Rio Negro for, the fish from ornamental fish and the Aqua, Barcelos in Santa Isabel of Rio Negro. And we are doing this since 2012. So, and the government of Rio Negro, we have this brand, is a stamp, the unique brand for ornamental fish. So right now, the PB Rose are registered on this brand. And also they are training all year to have, the best practices and take care of the environment and the sustainability. And as well, we are training all exporting in Manaus to take care of the fish. So once a year is a law for this brand to have this training to take care of the fish and as well, following the steps to have this stamp with the fish for the exporting ways, And the first things for this PB Rose is take care of the environment and the sustainability in the environment and the water, the forest and the fish and catch up the fish as well and only in the season according to the law in Brazil. And we are colleagues on the same law as and this year we received from the Brazilian government, the Ministry of Agriculture as well, the black label, the blacklist only, and it's so now to facilitating to exporting to be easy to check this according to the same law and the geographic indication and this blacklist, and take care of the fish then can be exported and you can exporting, And sorry, yes, Paul, yeah.
Muito prazer em conhecê-lo. Thank you very much.
Muito prazer. Okay.
The Brazil, especially Manaus, used to be much bigger in exports than it currently is. It has lost a lot of ground.
Exactly.
The captive bred fish from Southeast Asia mainly. Mm-hmm. It is truly a great initiative to see in Brazil educating people right where it all starts, catching fish. It's a fantastic initiative. In our last journal, and our editor is here on the screen as well, John, we did an article on, with the help from one of our members in Brazil on the listing of fish species that are allowed to be exported now these days. Instead of a blacklist, a whitelist, there's a new approach from IBAMA at this point, which hopefully will stimulate the trade and help a lot of people in their livelihood again.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you for thank you.
It's still a complicated situation in Brazil. Hi, Mary, nice to see you.
Yeah, it's nice to see you too.
But I just checked on the chats and Karen Gaynor actually said, thank you, Paul, thank you, John, for this information about the balancing act that we were talking about. But probably what Karen doesn't know is how deep within the Project Piaba psyche this conservation concept is. Because its slogan is buy a fish, save a
And save a
tree.
tree. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I think, Karen, I know you're listening in. This is probably something that also that that you might welcome.
So I'd like to explain because we are exactly this slogan, buy a fish and save a tree. And if the Piaberos has the opportunity to be part of the cooperative Ornapesca, they must be prepared and trained once a year to have taking care of the environment, the soil and the trees. You know, the fish when they go down to the river, they must take out of the wood, take out the fish, get fish, and to put again the same place, the same wood on the same environment to take care of the environment as well. And don't use no much antibiotics, no much, you know, food for health for human, like oil to take care of catfish. They must use a lot of things and also the and instruments to catfish according to the law and this the following of the indication of procedure of Rio Negro. So we are training right now more than 40 Piaberos for restarting catching fish according to this law, and they are selling more than usually. If you compare 5 years ago, when you know the collapsed in Manaus and Rio Negro for catching fish, most of the Piaberos went out of this profession and the job. They went studying, you know, selling drugs or selling foods or doing tourism or doing prostitution. This is bad things. And right now they are restarting to catfish as Piabero and having a card as Piabero professionally thinking. And they are part of this cooperative. They are selling together from the cooperative, no more through this, the middle of the chain. So because of this, they are taking care more about the environment using this law, the indication of procedure to follow these steps when they catching fish. As well, according to this law, all year they have a stock of the fish and they have a very nice food coming from US and also using a very nice equipment and tanks to put the fish and cleaning up all the time, you know, to take care more of the fish and arriving to exporting more healthy and no much designs, and they can survive more, you know, when they go to the exporting import.
Good initiative. Great.
Yeah, thank you. This is made by you know, no payment things. We are how I say in English as
an NGO or
as an NGO. Yeah. So it's for free. So we use only money for this training and the food and all this equipment. We gave like a gift for the Piaberos. It's for free for them. Right. They don't pay nothing. This is good, I think.
Mini, did you get any other questions?
Yep.
Yes, I'll read it out to you. Thank you, Mary. That's.
Thank you for the opportunity.
One second, let me. Yes, that's a question from Binu Verghese. He asks, what is really happening in the EU market? Is it static, whether new players entering, or older? Why is it static? Whether new players are coming, or?
I think I understand what the question is.
All right.
There's in Europe, and I'm talking from a Dutch background, from my own experience. Within the Netherlands, we've seen that a number of old wholesale companies have left the business at a certain point, and the ones that are still in business expanded their activities. I think the market itself is not growing at this moment. It is relatively static in the past years. So there might be a few new players from here and there, but there's all the ones that had left the business. Maybe John, you have an idea. We've seen a number of names like Ruisboek leaving the business in the Netherlands, but there are more in Belgium as well. You had Antwerpen, that was a small company as well that left the business. And we have seen a number of new names, but I don't think the market has increased in size in any way.
Sorry, Paul, were you asking me?
No, that's okay. Thanks, John. I hope that will answer the question.
Okay, I don't think he's talking. I see another question. Mr. Salam Ismail, he's asking, when it comes to endangered species here in my country, he's not specified his country, in case of beta macrostoma, they're commonly wild caught or sold at $2 each, but outside the country. From his country, beta macrostoma. That he was mentioning with the wild caught, I guess.
A beta macrostoma.
Yes,
I've seen beta macrostoma in the past in the trade. It is a species which is, I can only talk about 5 years ago when I was still participating actively in the trade. That was traded in just a number of pairs. It's not like a huge thing. Whether they're always wild caught or captive bred, I cannot comment on that. I don't know. I don't have the knowledge.
Perhaps I can add something to it. I'm president of the Ornamental Association of Great Britain, and some of our members breed beta macrostoma. But as far as I'm aware, virtually the whole of the UK demand is satisfied by the number of specimens that are bred by members and exchanges and so on. I am not aware of having seen it on any import list. I think a lot of the distribution is internal from specialist hobbyists. I think so. I mean, I could check, but I think that is the situation with this species. Let's face it, it's not one of those species that it's neither highly prolific, I mean, it's quite spectacular, you know, the big mouth and all that, but it's not like a beta splendens, so it's not likely to result in huge demand from the world market.
I agree. Yes. I hope that answers the question, Minnie.
Oh, yes. Danny, you have something to add? Danny's picture.
No, Minnie, nothing.
Thank you. See, thank you for joining. He said he was retired, but he's joined us. I was asking him, I told him, all our friends are here. Why don't you join? And he joined. He missed, he had a meeting and he missed Shane's talk, but he joined for Shane's and yours, Paul.
Okay. Hi, Danny. Mashlomcha.
Nice to see you all. I have a problem with my camera. It was okay this morning, but
yeah, I saw that.
I hope to get it fixed by tomorrow.
Story of my life. Are there any other questions, Minnie?
No, I didn't see any.
Come in. I've seen one. Yeah. I've seen the latest comment from Karen Gaynor. Okay. He says, thank you, Marines, thanking obviously Maria Baltan. This is a good example of how sustainable use of a species can benefit livelihoods and also have conservation benefits, a win-win situation. I think one of the things that this webinar is highlighting is how valuable it is to communicate and to talk to each other and get an insight of each other's perspectives. And Karen, I'm very pleased that you're with us and joining so enthusiastically.
Couldn't agree more, John.
Well, you're very welcome. I'm very happy to be here.
Minnie, may I say something?
Yes.
It's not directly a question, as I as you know, Paul, are on the same pace as you when it comes to the situation in Europe. But I wanted to add a little bit on this issue of wild-caught and captive bred, as I think that one issue that everyone should be aware of is that different consumers have different opinions on what is important. Some are looking specific for things that can't possibly commercially bred in an economical, sustainable way. Others are looking for whatever is colorful or don't put big demands on what species it is or where it comes from. And everything that is sold in large quantities almost automatically drifts into captive breeding, because the more you breed close to the markets, the cheaper the fish get, and you have more control over the supply. But there are also those who are looking specifically for captive bred because they have learned that wild harvest is bad. For myself, the only important reason for being involved in working for this industry is the importance for the livelihoods and the effects we see from these livelihoods on conservation incentives in the range countries for the fish. When we lose that, the more that is bred close to the markets, the fewer hands the profits end up on, and the range countries lose the benefits they once had. This is happening over and over again, and it would be a sad day when we see that everything is bred in the market countries. I think very few of the consumers think about this, but we as a trade should be much better at getting out the message of the importance for livelihoods. It's absolutely something that very few people think about when it comes to the ornamental fish trade and hobby.
Excellent comment, Svein. Excellent. Yes, totally right. Great.
Nice to hear you all after a long time discussing.
Meaning we could go on forever. In fact, we do when we get together.
Now John has become a perfect good in Zoom. Did you see that, Paul?
The what? The what?
John has become. I'm sorry. Yeah, John has become very good with Zoom meetings. Look at that.
Learning. The other day, Paul and I had a conversation via Zoom, and I said, "I warn you, Paul, I'm a beginner," and he said, "So am I. So let's go for it."
We get that.
John got a trainer. John.
I had an excellent trainer, Paul. My trainer is right here on screen. Really coached me into it.
We had fun. It was nice. You all helped me. It was a small dream, bringing all together. Once again, all of us coming together, and you made it all happen. Really, this is fantastic.
You're welcome.
I myself was surprised. I was just going for that opening meeting, and I took the digital analytics, and I see 38 countries, 1,500 participants from 38 countries. I'm like, what? We must have more of it. This is like amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any more?
That's a question. Let me take. Challenge one faces in India, especially India today, is food produce. I think it must answer. All right. Okay. Shall we call it a day?
Thank you.
See you all. You must come. You must come tomorrow. You must join tomorrow, Paul.
Thank you.
I will. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good
Thank you.
meeting you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, all
Bye.
of you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Okay,
Bye.
thank you all.
Bye
Talk
bye.
to you tomorrow.
Yeah.
First time we've seen you, Karen.
Yes.
Oh, I was on a little bit
Uh-huh.
earlier, but yes, there is a face behind the voice that keeps talking.
It's nice to put a face to the name.
Okay, see you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thanks,
very much.
Paul.
Thank you, Minnie.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Yes. I think the admins are working on the